Hello everyone, I hope everyone is doing okay. In today's video, I wanted to talk about why I think I got my election prediction so catastrophically wrong. And in reflecting in the last couple of days, also worrying about the future of mankind, I've come to the conclusion that the main reason I was wrong was because of my personal biases and the preferred candidate who I wanted to win. Now, of course, I didn't heed my own advice in my previous videos when I said you have to take into account the political lens that the astrologer is looking through. I think I attempted to be objective, but in on reflection, I don't think that's been the case. In my hubris of calling the 2020 election correctly and also noting back in 2020 that I didn't think Joe Biden would seek re-election in 2024, I had this false sense of infallibility. And even now, when I'm looking back at my videos in 2020, I'm now skeptical of that work for the same reasons, even though I got the prediction correct. Now, I'm not as skeptical as my conclusion that I thought Joe Biden would maybe have some health issues or some stress in 2024, but that would have been the case regardless of whether he was elected president or not. Now, the major through line looking at my videos in 2020 and 2024 is that each time my interpretations fell in line with the candidates I preferred would win those elections. And going back through the presentations, I don't think there was particularly any technical mistakes, but I did see myself interpreting the charts through my own political lens and what I subconsciously hoped would happen rather than exploring other possibilities. And of course, that was a terrible mistake. What is interesting is a friend of mine sent me a list of astrologers who made their predictions this year, and I'm not going to share that list. But what was interesting was that there was about a 75 to 25% split in favor of Kamala Harris winning the presidency. And I just want to say thank you for the person who put that list together because it was very informative. Now, while this is anecdotal, I think it might be fair to say that most astrologers, at least in the West, are left-leaning or more progressive. Speaking for myself, I was part of the Bernie Sanders campaign back in 2016, so I think that speaks for itself where I fall on the political spectrum. Now, why might it be the case that astrologers, by and large, are more left-leaning? I think it's because astrology, at least in the West, is not seen as a serious subject and practice. There's both the theological and scientific intolerance of astrology and practice. And of course, someone like me making incorrect predictions isn't helping with that cause. But I think it comes down to more left-leaning and progressive political views being more egalitarian and that less sense of discrimination that you find in the astrology community, which is very, very welcoming to everybody. Now, sitting here as a privileged white European straight male, I'm not equating this marginalization with those faced by minorities and those in the LGBTQ plus communities. But what I am saying, maybe there is unaware biases across the board. Now, not just for those who are left leaning, maybe for those who are also called the election for Donald. Because I was watching one of these videos, and of course, the astrologer was predicting Donald Trump would win the election, but it was fairly obvious this person was a Trump supporter. So again, I don't think this just is a left-leaning issue. I think it also comes from the right as well. So I would argue that those who went against their preferred candidate and found the correct prediction are really the ones worth paying attention to. Now, I'm not making a judgment call. It's not my place, and I don't have the authority to do so, but I would ask of the astrologers one simple question, which is, who did you prefer to win? And keeping that in mind before we start looking at charts. Now, there are some people who didn't have a horse in the race, so I think that's something to take into account as well. Now, to support this theory, I was speaking to a highly respected astrologer 2 weeks ago, and they told me that they thought Donald Trump would win the election, even though it wasn't their preferred candidate. Now, me receiving that information, my wall went up, my confirmation bias came through, and I was thinking to myself, no, no, I've been through the charts and I've been correct before in 2020. I said Joe Biden won't seek re-election. And again, this false sense of infallibility came over me. And then as we got even further into the election cycle, because I made these predictions for Kamala and Trump back in July and August, a few weeks later, you had the likes of Alan Lickman with his 13 keys, And he was saying Kamala Harris too, and he's been pretty much correct since 1984. So I was just like, yeah, there's no way I wasn't listening. And again, I think now in hindsight, I should have been listening very carefully to what that astrologer was saying. So here's my advice to beginner Kepler students. Try to take seriously the lens that you are looking through when you're looking at charts and learn from my mistakes. Now I've publicly embarrassed myself, but I think this is very much a teaching moment for me, and the universe has humbled me, and a very hard lesson moving forward, but a lesson I have taken on board and that I need to take forward in future interpretations. Now, could there be a solution to this issue in future elections? This has been a big problem both in 2016 and now in 2024. I think one possible solution, if there's a case, if we get another election, one possible solution would be if there are new faces in the next cycle, in the next election, and astrologers haven't seen the charts before. I wonder if it would be beneficial to have a panel of astrologers and them given the charts of the two candidates, but not knowing who they are. This is something I do with my students when we're doing mystery chart episodes and they're looking at the raw astrology. I think that's going to be very helpful, and it's a great teaching tool. But I think that's going to be very helpful, possibly in future election cycles as we move forward, to have more of an unbiased look and try and strip away any political biases as astrologers are looking at the charts and interpreting who may win elections. And it's incredibly effective to view charts this way with not knowing who the person is, because you don't have the preconceived ideas or notions about how this person has lived their life. Again, you're just looking at the raw astrology. And today I was also going to do some hindsight astrology, looking back at my presentations and for the charts I did for Kamala and Donald Trump, and talk about what I dismissed and subconsciously ignored. Well, I've written out my post-election responses underneath those videos that you can go back and look at. But if you want to put it in the comments, if you'd like me to do a video on that, I'm quite happy to look back and look at the astrology in a new light. But another thing I will say is that the techniques are valid. I've had a lot of success with the techniques that I showcased in those videos, both with people I work with and looking at charts in my own life. So I think this is just a case of not applying it to political predictive work because again, my political biases are just coming through. And lastly, I wish to apologize to those who I gave false hope. I love astrology, but I did the practice a disservice. But I learned a hard lesson moving forward. We've got Saturn and stationing to go direct next week. It's my outer set malefic. So these hard lessons are certainly coming back around for me. I wish you all the best and peace in these challenging times, and I hope to see you again in future videos. Thank you for watching.